Welcome to the Weekly Sports Guide podcast. I'm your host, Ashton Alcock, and we're going to talk all Major League sports as well as some college sports. And today I got a good show for you. We're going to go over my Week 4 picks and as well as going over the Knicks trade for Karl-Anthony Towns. To get started, we'll start off with the NFL, as that's going to be starting on tomorrow with Week 4 and their Sunday slates as well as their Monday having 2 games. With the first 1 o'clock game being the Saints at the Falcons. And I actually had the Falcons winning this. The Saints, I just feel like, are just going to kind of fall off a little bit. I think they had a little bit of that Cinderella run. I'm not saying in any means necessary that the Saints are going to be a bad team for the rest of the year. They played really well in that first 2 games. They even blew out the Cowboys. But they ended up losing a really tough game to the Eagles last week where they didn't look like themselves. But coming into this game, the Falcons are coming off a really tough loss to the Chiefs. A play that could have been called pass interference at the end. And there's obviously a couple mistakes that the Falcons didn't make last week that they could have probably, if they made those moves, they probably end up winning that game instead. But they're coming in this week with some momentum, some motivation, because they were playing well from Week 2 and Week 3. They played really well. So coming in this game, they have a ton of momentum, even though they did lose last week. But a lot of motivation after last week's loss, almost beating the Chiefs. So give me the Falcons, 42-35. For our next 1 o'clock game, we got the 0-3 Bengals and the 1-2 Panthers. The Panthers came out with a surprise last week after they benched Bryce Young and started Andy Dalton. That who knew what was going to happen? Everyone was like, is Andy Dalton going to be better? Was it Bryce Young's fault? Is it just the team so bad? And Andy Dalton came out of the blue and had a game of his life where he threw for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. That was an impressive game. But he's also playing his former team this week, who are 0-3. They lost to the Patriots. They've lost a tough game to the Chiefs. They lost to a great performance by Jane Daniels last week against the Commanders. This week, I think they're going to get their first W. It's the Panthers. I don't think they're that good this year. Obviously, they're one of the worst teams in the league. I don't think they're going to have a good week like they had last week. I think last week they're all new momentum with having a new quarterback in, a new coach. Like, obviously, they're having a new coach, but the new quarterback kind of coming in, even though it's Andy Dalton, he's a veteran. He's been in the league for so many years. I just don't see them having that run again. They're going to be the worst team in football again this year. They're going to have the number 1 overall pick, and they're probably going to go quarterback. And if they don't, they're going to go probably defensive line or O-line. They do need a lot of help there. But for right now, we're only in Week 4. That's weeks ahead. Give me the Bengals in this game. The Bengals, I think, this is finally where they get their first win. They should have won last week. They should have won Week 1. And they probably could have won Week 2, and it could be 3-0 right now, going to be 4-0. I'm taking the Bengals pretty decisively, 35-10. The next game is the Rams at the Bears. I'm not a huge fan of the Bears this year. I don't think Caleb Williams is that good. I had him ranked as the second best quarterback in this draft. But I'm going to take the Rams here. The Rams, they aren't much better either in their own standpoint. Their weapons are hurt. They have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, who are really good wide receivers in this league. Puka Nacua is a steal last year. He burst out of the scene. He was going to burst out of the scene this year. Then he ended up hurting his knee. Cooper Kupp gets hurt. Now he's kind of down. But I just do not trust the Bears at all. The offense has barely moved. Caleb has not looked great. He threw his first 2 touchdowns last week. Yes, there were nice plays, but you have so many weapons. You should be doing way more with this Bears team. You have a good defense also as well. I know your coach isn't that great, but you should be able to actually do stuff with this team. You're the undoubted number 1 overall pick, but you should be doing more. So give me the Rams 17-14 in a close game. Next game we have is the Vikings at the Packers. The Vikings are 3-0 despite the fact they lost their rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, and they have Sam Darnold starting, but Sam Darnold has been pretty impressive to start the season. He's been playing the game manager role perfectly. He has Justin Jefferson, I know, and he's the best receiver in the league. But what he's been doing, what Kevin O'Connell's doing there, Brian Flores with that defense, I'm taking the Vikings in this game because the Packers are probably going to get Jordan Love back, but he's coming off a serious injury where knee injury. It's not really that serious, but it's something to watch out for. He's definitely sprained it. Where now he's going to come back. He's probably going to be a little rusty. He hasn't played in a couple weeks. He's just started practicing. He's on pace to play, but if not, it's going to be Malik Willis. If it is Malik Willis playing, this game's going to be a lot closer, but I'm still taking the Vikings. Give me the Vikings 24-21. If Jordan Love is playing, I'm going to say it's about 31-21. They'll get just an extra touchdown. For the next game we do have is the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Houston Texans. I'm taking the Texans in this one. Jacksonville has looked off this year. Doug Peterson hasn't been that great of a coach this year. This team's just not at the state it should be. It should also be a little bit better. Houston has had a tough loss last week to the Minnesota Vikings in a blowout loss, but it's still the Houston Texans. You're going to obviously have losses like that. That's going to happen. But you're still a really good team. You have a really good young quarterback. You have a great receiving core. They're going to bounce back this week, and then they're going to win this game at pretty decidedly. I'm going to say 31-14. I just can't see Jacksonville pulling out a win against this Houston Texans team, who I do have winning the division this year. The next game is the Steelers at the Colts. I'm not a huge fan of the Steelers this year. The 3-0 is a fluke. They're not going to be that good this year. They're probably going to finish 7-10, maybe 8-9 at best, maybe 9-8 if things go their way. But Justin Fields has not looked great, but nor has Anthony Richardson. So I'm taking the Steelers in this game. They're going to start 4-0, but it's mostly because their defense has been great. But they're not facing a great Colts team that's stuck with Anthony Richardson, who's a young guy. This is probably basically about the same amount of games he's played since last year. He's hopefully playing a full year. He's a young guy. It's a little bit of a project, so it's going to be a little bit different for him. But he also leads the league in picks, so it's kind of be hard. I'm going to take the Steelers defense in this game. Steelers win 17-7. The next game is the Broncos at the Jets. I'm decisively not going to say, I'm decisively saying that the Jets will win this game. Pretty decisively. The Broncos aren't that good. The defense is average. Bo Nix hasn't looked phenomenal. I heard that the offense is so died down to him. They basically give him a certain amount of plays that kind of tend around his skills, but they don't expand the playbook. So he has a very limited playbook, limited plays that he can play with. So I'm going to take the Jets 42-10. The Jets had a great win last week against New England. They also had a great win week 2 against the Titans, despite the fact that they started off horrible in that game, but in that second half, the adjustments were made, and they ended up coming out and beating the Titans. Yeah, sure, they beat the Titans a little bit bigger, more of a 24-3 game like they had last week against the Patriots. Yeah, but they're also first year with Aaron Rodgers, because I'm not counting what happened last year with Aaron Rodgers. He tore his Achilles in 4 plays. So this is basically a whole new team for the Jets. They have a new receiver. They got some new defensive pieces, even though Hassan Reddick does not like to play. They got a new O-line. So you kind of have a bunch of new things coming together. And the Jets are finally getting it together. They're going to start their 3-game win streak this week. The Broncos just have nothing to do. The next game is the Philadelphia Eagles at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This should be a pretty good game. I'm not really high on the Eagles this year. I think it's more of a Nick Sirianni thing for me than it is that Tampa's really good. I think Sirianni kind of fell off after that year they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They added Saquon, who's been a huge piece, but they lost Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, and the injury bug just has also hit their receiving core just like the Rams. I'm going to take the Bucs because the Bucs defense is playing really well as their offense. Baker is resurged in Tampa, and I'm actually kind of glad that I get to see Baker actually be pretty good. Actually, not even pretty good. He's actually really good in Tampa. They figured out what to do with him. Dave Canales, the head coach of the Panthers, did great work last year with him, and obviously he still took what he learned last year and brought it in to this season. So I'm taking the Bucs 20-10. For the first 4:05 game, we got the Commanders at the Cardinals. I'm not really high on the Cardinals. I do like that they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. I am an Ohio State Buckeyes fan, so I'm slightly a little biased about Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's a really good receiver. He's starting to show after that week 1 performance where he basically got no targets, but he ended up bursting on the scene. Him and Kyler have a great connection. But this Commanders team is coming off a great win in Cincinnati. They have a lot of momentum. They're 2-1 this season. They're fighting in that tough division of the NFC East. Jaden Daniels had a performance of his lifetime. He showed what he's supposed to be, and I don't see the Cardinals really fighting up. They lost Trey McBride in this game. I don't know who their backup tight end is. It used to be Zach Ertz, but now he's left. He's actually now in Washington. So it's kind of a little bit of a game for Zach Ertz. So I'm going to take the Washington Commanders 24-14. The next 4:05 game and the last 4:05 game before we get to the 4:25 slate is the Patriots at the Niners. This game is not really going to be that much of a game. The Patriots defense is good, but it's not going to be enough to stop the Niners every time the Niners are on offense, because I don't think the Patriots are going to generate enough offense to keep up in this game. Obviously, the Niners had a bunch of injuries coming into this game, but George Kittle seems like he's playing. Brock Purdy seems like he's playing. Debo might play. Trent Williams might play. Their defense is healthy other than their Javon Hargrave. The Patriots offense is a one-center offense. They only like to run the ball. They're really good at running the ball, but it's not enough. The O-line is horrible. They need to make some pieces. Obviously, they're getting some pieces back. City Sal might be back on Sunday. Next week, they're going to probably get Cole Strange back. But as of right now, if City Sal plays, the O-line might be a little bit better, but they're starting their fourth straight different left tackle. I have no clue. It might be Jones. It might be Jacobs. I have no clue who it's going to be for the Patriots. And their passing offense has been pretty non-existent. They throw the least amount of passing yards per game with 102 per game. That's 32nd in the league. So give me the Niners 31-17. The next game is 4:25. It's the Chiefs at the Chargers. If you tell me and the Chargers are healthy and gave me this matchup again in a few weeks, I could possibly be picking the Chargers here. The Chargers are actually playing really well under Jim Harbaugh. They're running the ball really well. Justin Herbert's playing really well. He just got hurt. But they're so banged up. They have, I think Rashawn Slater's out. I think Joey Bosa's out. Joe Alt's questionable. And the Chiefs are fully healthy, so I'm going to take the Chiefs in this game. The Chiefs they're 3-0. They obviously haven't been playing like the Chiefs we normally see, but they're getting a lot closer to the Chiefs we used to see. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes said himself he's not having his best year, and so as Travis Kelce said the same thing. But also, Kelce's not really getting involved as much as he usually is. But I'm going to take the Chiefs. Chiefs are probably going to win probably 34-21. I think it's going to be a 13-point loss for the Chargers. I think if this team's fully healthy, this game's going probably maybe close to an overtime game or a game-winning drive, something like that. The last 4:25 game in this 4 o'clock slate is the Browns at the Raiders. This game is not that great to me. I was on my friend's podcast yesterday talking sports with Jake. Shout out to Jake. You guys should check him out. I said this game was going to end in a tie. Obviously, I don't believe this game's going to end in a tie. It's so rare that ties happen. And when they do happen, it's kind of impressive that you tied in overtime. Like, you guys couldn't get in the field goal range, but it happens. Sometimes it's just stalemate offense or just phenomenal defense just happens. The Browns' defense is obviously better than the Raiders. The Raiders don't have Marcel Mayer, Devontae Adams, Max Crosby's also out. So I am picking the Browns in this game. I think it's going to be a real slugfest. So it's like I don't really see this game going to be really high scoring. So I'm taking the Browns 13-10 over the Raiders. The Raiders, they still have to figure out the QB situation. They don't really have a QB. It's Gardner Minshew right now, who's perfectly fine as like a bridge guy till next year. But they're also considering starting Aiden O'Connell. So they have no clue where they're really going there. And their receivers are really going to be Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, which Jacoby Myers is good, and Brock Bowers is a rookie, but I don't think it's going to be enough to propel them over a team that has a great defense like the Cleveland Browns. For the Sunday Night Football game, we're going to talk is the Bills at the Ravens. I had the Ravens winning this game. They're at home. They came off a good win against Dallas. Obviously, they almost blew the lead, but they obviously took their foot off the pedal, and they kind of hit the brakes, and Dallas kind of came back. But the Bills, they haven't looked great. They're good, but they haven't been great. I think the Jets are going to really fight for that division this year. I think Miami, when they were healthy with Tua and all them, I think they had a chance. But obviously, they don't really have that because Tua's hurt. So it's really going to be up to the Jets right now and the Bills to win this division. Buffalo, they don't have that true number one receiver. They had that with Stephon Diggs. They dealt him in the offseason due to the fact that he was unhappy there. And they ended up drafting Keon Coleman, who's looking really good. But you still need that X factor at the receiver spot. I think this is going to be a really close game. It's going to be a fun Sunday night football game. Give me the Ravens 28-24. And like I said earlier, we do have two Monday night games. At 7:30, we have the Titans at Dolphins. This is going to be Tyler Huntley versus Will Levis. And I like to call Will Levis the new mean quarterback, just like how Trace McSorley was like in COVID, and he was all over TikTok with the whole Trace McSorley throwing on a dime song that you kept hearing on TikTok 99% of the time. But the Titans and the Dolphins, this game's really not going to be that great. I was going to have the Dolphins winning if they had Tua, but Tua's not healthy. He's out for probably till week 8. He might not even play football again. He says he wants to play, but I don't know if a doctor's going to just say, hey, I don't want you playing. I don't want you getting seriously hurt or getting something that could be a long-term issue. I'm going to take the Titans in this game. I don't think it's going to really, just like the Browns game, I don't think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a 10-6 game. Titans winning just because they score one touchdown. Titans finally get a win. I like what Brian Callahan's trying to do in Tennessee. Obviously, Will Levis is just not panning out. There's some fundamental issues that Will Levis is having where he should be doing this, but he's not doing that. So give me the Titans 10-6. And our last game on Monday Night Football, is Seahawks at Lions. The Lions haven't been playing as good as they usually are. They're not a bad team, but they're not a great team. They're in that middle of the pack. They're good. They'll probably make the playoffs, fight for the division. But Seattle has looked really good in the first 3 weeks. I know they haven't really played any great teams. They played New England, and they also played Skylar Thompson, the Dolphins. So they really had 2 week stretch where they weren't playing great teams. But they're still a really good team. They have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jibba. Geno Smith's been playing well. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, when Kenneth Walker's healthy, is a great duo. Zach Charbonnet is really picking up that role since he got hurt. Noah Fant's been solid. I'm going to take the Seahawks in this game. I think it's going to be a little bit of a fun matchup on Monday Night Football. I'm going to take Seahawks 34-31. I just think Seattle just has the edge with Matt McDonald coaching up that defense, and that defense is playing really well. So last night, now let's talk about the NBA. Last night, a big trade went down for the New York Knicks, where they acquired Karl-Anthony Towns in a 3-team deal. Trying to pull up the Knicks are getting Karl-Anthony Towns. Minnesota's getting Julius Randle, Donte DiVincenzo, and a first-round pick via Detroit. This move for the Knicks is kind of trying to push them. They're trying to do like what the Celtics did the season prior, where they got Kristaps Porzingis and then they ended up getting Drew Holiday. This year, the Knicks got Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns. So they're trying to do that thing like the Celtics did last year, where the Celtics went from losing the Eastern Conference Finals to winning the NBA championship. They're hoping to do it from losing to the second round and hopefully being in the NBA Finals, fighting for an NBA championship for the first time in a very long time. I like the move. I am a fan of Cat. He's not great defensively, but he's going to get you points on the board offensively. Jalen Brunson's this is his team officially, even though I thought last year was still his team since he kind of broke out in New York. I think he took that over from Julius Randle. But it really puts the Knicks into a position where it's like, okay, we have to win now. You threw all your chips in, you threw all your cards in, you gave all your pieces. I've seen Knicks fans crying that Donte DiVincenzo is a good trade. I'm like, you have to lose somebody to get somebody, right? Like the Celtics gave up a core piece in Marcus Smart to get Kristaps Porzingis. They gave up Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon, who was a 6th man of the year for them the season prior, to go get Drew Holiday. You got to lose pieces to gain pieces. Julius Randle, he's been injured a lot there. He's had on and off seasons. He's had an all-star year, then he would have a little bit of a down year, back to playing like an all-star level. So get a guy that's a little more consistent in Karl-Anthony Towns, who's an all-star. He just won a 3-point contest last year. So he can shoot the 3. He can pass the ball. He's going to help spread out this offense a little bit. We can stretch big. Also adding a big man piece to their front court that was a little bit weak after losing Isaiah Hartenstein. Mitchell Robinson's out for the beginning of the year. So you're really down to like Jericho Sims, and I don't think that's really a piece that you really want starting this year. So go out, get yourself a Karl-Anthony Towns. Was a phenomenal move for the Knicks. Obviously, we'll see what happens if the team meshes. Obviously, training camp starting up in a couple of days. Payo, as I'm speaking, They might already have training camp now. But Carly Towns will be there obviously in a few days. Preseason's also coming up, and the season's got to start. So you gotta have a starting lineup that's gonna be pretty good. You gotta have Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, OG, Mikal, and Cat. That's a good. That's a good offensive um, group there. Obviously, OG's more known for his defense rather than his offense, but Mikal's known for his offense as well as Josh Hart for his shooting. Jalen Brunson, we know who Jalen Brunson is. He's an all-star point guard. But I do think there's one thing missing from this Knicks team, and I don't think they really solved it. And I've been having this issue with them. And I'm hoping that maybe Carly Towns kind of hides that. They kind of missing that star wing, so I'm hoping that seeing that Mikal coming in, obviously he's played good with the Brooklyn Nets, but he really needs to kind of make that wing presence. Obviously, this is a wing-oriented league. You have like Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, LeBron James. And you can kind of go on and list so many good small forwards and power forwards that kind of dominate the league. And then you have teams like the Sixers and the Nuggets who have Jokic and Embiid. But the one thing that's kind of missing is that second elite scorer for the Knicks. And either Cat's going to have to come that, or it's going to have to be Mikal Bridges. OG and Josh Hart is going to be that kind of those pieces like the Derek White and Drew Holiday for Boston, where they kind of were just there. You knew what they were there. You knew what they're going to produce, and hopefully that propels them to wins. They do got a good coach in Tom Thibodeau, so let's see what the Knicks have to offer. I kind of keep talking with the NBA. I kind of want to talk about my tiers for the NBA. For at least the Eastern Conference, and I'll also do the Western Conference, so that kind of we can see how each team for me kind of sits. So let's start with the Eastern Conference. The season's starting up in a couple weeks. We got the defending champs, the Boston Celtics. We also have teams that have gotten better this offseason. So to start off with the Eastern Conference team, my best overall team is also the Boston Celtics. They're coming off an NBA championship. They had the best roster last year. They had one of the deepest rosters, and they had the worst 5-game stretch offensively in the NBA Finals, and they won that pretty decisively in 5 games over the Dallas Mavericks. So they're kind of the only ones in this tier. In my A tier, these are my good teams in the Eastern Conference. These are like the teams that you expect to be good. Obviously, the Knicks. The Knicks should be the 2nd seed this year, fighting for that 1 seed with Boston with the new acquisition of Karl-Anthony Towns. The Sixers also should be in this list as a good team. They just got Paul George. They brought back they re-signed Tyrese Maxey. They have Joel Embiid coming back. So there's going to be a lot of high expectations. They also brought in Caleb Martin. So they have a lot of expectations to kind of fight for that spot with the Knicks in that 2nd spot, as well as pushing for a possible first time for Joel Embiid Eastern Conference Finals push. But I think that's going to be really hard, especially when the Sixers haven't done that since Embiid got there. And my last team in this list, and they kind of always sit in this spot, is the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks, they have Giannis, one of the best players in the league. He's an MVP. He's won a championship as well. That team's not going away anytime soon. Giannis is always going to keep them afloat. They also have Damian Lillard, and they also have Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, who they talked about moving off, but they kept him. So this team's still going to be really good. Then my B tier, which is my young and up-and-coming tier. These are teams that I think are young. They're kind of right there, but they just need a couple more years. That is the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Orlando Magic. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they made it to the 2nd round last year, beat the Magic in the 1st round, lost to Boston in 5 games. But Donovan Mitchell's having fun there. Garland is there. You got a couple of pieces kind of just floating around there. But you got a good team there, so it's hopefully time for Cleveland to maybe try and make a push to try to fight for a spot in the Eastern Conference Finals. And for the Magic, this year is hopefully maybe make it out of the 1st round this year. Paolo Banchero has been really good. Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter. They have so many good players there that just it's kind of working. They're just really young. They kind of have to kind of mesh a little more, get more experience. Hopefully winning out of the 1st round this year can give them a little more experience to kind of propel them. They probably have one of the brightest futures in the league. Paolo Banchero is a future superstar. So hopefully they kind of put it all together and they become one of the best teams in the East. My C tier is like, what are you kind of doing? Where are you at? The Atlanta Hawks is in this tier. They're not good, but they're not bad. They're like okay. But they also like confuse me because you traded DeJounte Murray for Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance, and a couple picks where you could probably got way more for him. I know he didn't really pan out there and as the way they wanted to, but you have a piece like that, you kind of have to move him for more than what you got. My next tier in this list is the Toronto Raptors. I did like the move they made last year when they moved off Anunoby and Siakam and got a few pieces back. They ended up two big pieces in RJ Barrett and Manu Quickly. I know they're not superstars, but they're really good pieces. RJ kind of found himself a home there. He did get a little bit better than he was on the Knicks. Obviously, he's hoping to build off that, but this team's construction around that is kind of a little bit questionable, but they're a team that's kind of in the rebuild but trying to be competitive at the same time. So that kind of confuses me. My third team out of my four is the Miami Heat. Miami Heat has been pretty good in the last few years. Obviously, the roster doesn't look pretty on paper. It's not like you're like, oh, they have three superstars. They got Jimmy Butler, who's their superstar. They got Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, who has been really good for them, as well as getting Terry Rozier. But there's some moves like I kind of question is getting like a guy like Drew Holiday, where they offered a trade for it and they didn't get him. Damian Lillard, they gave up Bam and Hero in that deal, as well as Jovic and a few first, and the guy said no. Right? And DeJounte Murray, they missed out on. They missed on so many pieces. Is that it's not more for like the fan base and the team construction itself. It's more like what is Pat Riley doing? Because you were in the NBA Finals in 2023 versus the Nuggets. You lost, but you didn't build off that. You should have built off that and added a piece. If that was Damian Lillard, who even said he wanted to go to the Miami Heat, why didn't you make that move? Brogdon was eventually available this year as well, and they could have got him. He would have been a key piece as a guard there. Lauri Markkanen was available. Why didn't you give him an offer? Right? I know they did want a little bit too much, but now you have guys like D-Lillard are going to be available. DeMar DeRozan was available. He also said he was willing to play there. Didn't make the move. So kind of like what are you doing? They're going to make the playoffs next year. They're probably going to be like the 6th seed. And they'll probably end up finding a spot into the second round and maybe the Eastern Conference Finals. My last team in this division is the most confusing team to me. The Chicago Bulls. They are terrible. Zach LaVine hasn't really showed up. I think they should move off him. Another guy like Miami should go after. Vucevic hasn't panned out since you gave him the big contract. So you kind of into shambles. Lonzo's never going to probably play again. Sadly, injuries probably ruined his career, so he's probably going to retire at some point. You just have really nothing there other than Kobe White. So it's pretty much time to hit the rebuild button. And my worst teams, I'm not really going to kind of talk much about them because, and I forgot one team on my young and upcoming list was the Pacers. They played really well. They even made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Andrew Nembhard played well. Halliburton's really good. Miles Turner played well. Siakam. That team's really young and up and coming. And they'll be fighting in the East for a while. So they also have an upcoming tier. But these last two tiers are the worst teams in the Eastern Conference. The Brooklyn Nets, the Detroit Pistons, as well as the Washington Wizards. There's not much I can really say about these teams. Obviously, they're all in rebuilds, and they're at different stages. Brooklyn Nets are just hitting their rebuild. The Pistons are kind of in the middle of it, same as Washington after they dealt away Bradley Beal. So that's my Eastern Conference tier list. I'm going to do my my Western Conference team now. Let's see. No, I'm just going to end on top. So my dominant teams in the Western Conference are going to be the Denver Nuggets and the OKC Thunder. OKC Thunder and the Denver Nuggets literally fought all year long for that number one spot and just end up the Thunder won it. The Thunder are really young, but they're playing really well. Shea has them in a good spot. Chet is really good. They just signed Isaiah Hartenstein, which is going to be really good for them. The Denver Nuggets are Denver Nuggets. They're going to be really good. They had some key pieces this offseason, so they'll be fine to try to get a second championship in 3 years, and Thunder are hoping to get there first. One team I forgot to mention in the Eastern Conference is the Charlotte Hornets. They're also in that rebuild tier. I have no clue what they're doing. My good tiers are like my Dallas Mavericks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Sacramento Kings. I do think the Kings are actually going to be better and be good, as good as they were a couple of years ago. The Timberwolves, they just lost Cat, but I don't see Ant making that team worse. I don't think it's going to be worse. Julius Randle's a good piece to have. Gobert's really good defensively. I think they're still going to be the same team. I think it's just going to be a little bit less offensive production. And Dallas, they were just in the championship. Kyrie and Luka they showed that they work out. Derek Lively kind of came to the scene last year, and they just signed Klay Thompson. So that team should be very good this next year. I don't know if they go back to the finals, but they're kind of going to be there. My young and upcoming teams, I kind of have the San Antonio Spurs and the Houston Rockets in this list. They're not that great, but they have great young pieces. Sengun, Jalen Green, and they're prepared to make an offer to the Phoenix Suns to get Kevin Durant. That was a rumor to be talked about. But they are young. They have good pieces around them. And the same thing going to the Spurs. They got Victor Wembanyama, who looks like a future superstar in this league. So kind of let those be the young and upcoming. And probably the next few years, we'll probably end up seeing them. My kind of confusing teams are the Utah Jazz, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Warriors, the Grizzlies, and the Suns. Those are my kind of confusing teams because I don't know where they stand. The Jazz are like in the half rebuild, half competitive stage, kind of like holding their picks. They have Lauri Markkanen, but they have really nothing around him. So it looks like they're in a rebuild, but then they're a little too good to be in a rebuild. So they kind of seem like just outside the lottery, almost a play-in team, or they're in the play-in but lose. The Lakers, they've been talked in every single offseason to get that superstar. If it's DeMar DeRozan, if it's this person. Trae Young was not only mentioned. DeJounte Murray this year was another one they mentioned. So like every year they're constantly in talks about getting someone they never get. Lauri Markkanen was another. Zach LaVine's still available. They're probably interested in him. They just keep doing it, saying they're making a move, and they never do. And they send a play in and then get beat in the first round. The Clippers, they're starting to hit that road where they're about to hit the rebuild, but they still have Kawhi. I don't think Kawhi's going to try to make it as competitive as possible. The Warriors, Steph Curry's going to do all of his can. He's the greatest shooter of all time. He's one of the best point guards that we've ever seen. We saw what he did in 2022. This team's going to be competitive, probably going to be in the play-in, might make the playoffs. Memphis is also in this tier because Jaws was out for most of the year last year. He got suspended for half, then he got hurt for the other half. This year is probably going to be back fully. They were really good the year prior to that. They had Marcus Smart last offseason, which is a good defensive piece after losing Dylan Brooks. You have Jaren Jackson Jr. This team should be very competitive, but I don't know what they're doing because if it doesn't work out this year, what's your plan next? And the Suns, that big three does not work. D-Book, Beal, and Kevin Durant. There's no guard there that really is a ball handler. They really need a ball handler. They don't have that. They have two good scorers in Bradley Beal at the guard position. They have two good scorers in Bradley Beal and Devontae Booker. And they have one of the best scorers of all time at the forward position. And Nurkic is a solid center, but nothing too great for them that really propelled me to say they're going to win a championship. They have zero depth after Grayson Allen, so they're kind of like, what are you doing and where are you going to go? And my two rebuilding teams are New Orleans and Portland. Portland last year, you could tell they were going to rebuild when they let Damian Lillard go, and they ended up getting Robert Williams, DeAndre Ayton, and Malcolm Brogdon, who then eventually flopped Brogdon to the Wizards. But you can tell at that moment in time they were going to rebuild. They got two young centers that are pretty good. They also have Scoot Henderson, who's a young player. And they're just going to keep building off a young core and eventually will end up hitting to being good again. And the New Orleans Pelicans, they are not good to me. Zion has not worked out. He's a bust. As well as Brandon Ingram's really good. I think he needs to leave. I think they should let him go. They did just get DeJounte Murray, so they'll hope in the play for a play-in spot, but I don't think they make the play-in. Zion's never healthy enough. Brandon Ingram gets hurt often as well, and that bench is kind of awful. That is all I got for today for this Weekly Sports Guy podcast. I'll see you next time.